Today on Rappler, conservative Catholics ask the Supreme Court to strike down the reproductive health law. Malacanang says the hunt for embezzled Marcos wealth continues after the PCGG says it wants to wind down operations. And despite missing the fiscal cliff deadline, the U.S. Congress approves a deal to reduce its ballooning deficit. Hello, I'm Maria Ressa. Welcome to Rappler, your social news network. Only 12 days after its signing, a family questions the reproductive health law before the Supreme Court, saying it, quote, mocks the nation's culture and values. On Tuesday, James Imbong, along with his wife, Lovely, filed a petition before the Supreme Court on behalf of their children. Imbong says Republic Act 10354, quote, mocks the nation's Filipino culture, noble and lofty in its values, and holdings on life, motherhood, and family life. They also asked the Supreme Court to issue a temporary restraining order against the implementation of the law, which includes a controversial provision that promotes the use of artificial contraception. James Imbong is the son of Jo Imbong, the legal counsel of the Catholic Bishops' Conference of the Philippines. The CBCP is one of the staunchest critics of the law. On December 21, President Aquino signed the RH bill into law after 14 years in Congress. Malacanang says efforts to recover the ill-gotten wealth of the Marcos family will continue even as it downplays a proposal to terminate the Presidential Commission on Good Government, or PCGG. On Tuesday, PCGG Chair Andres Bautista revives a proposal he originally raised in 2011 that the government end the quest to recover Marcos's assets. Presidential spokesman Edwin Lacerda says the report is, quote, not something new, but adds the PCGG recommendations have not been brought up to the president. Sources tell Rappler that sometime in January 2011, a meeting was called by Executive Secretary Paquito Ochoa to discuss possible alternatives to dissolving the PCGG. Among the options considered at the time was to repurpose PCGG as the executive branch's anti-graft and corruption body. Malacanang did not take any other action following the meeting. The PCGG was established in 1986 by former President Cory Aquino in her first executive order after toppling the dictatorship of Ferdinand Marcos. Despite one of the lowest records of firecracker and gun-related injuries in recent years, tragedy strikes two families in Metro Manila on the first day of 2013. On New Year's Eve, a stray bullet kills 4-year-old Rangelo Nemor outside his home in Mandaluyong, and 7-year-old Stephanie Nicole Ella is hit by a bullet on New Year's Day in Caloocan City while watching fireworks outside her home. She's rushed to the hospital but dies on Wednesday because of severe head injuries. Malacanang expresses deep sympathy for the death of Ella and says the burden is on the Filipino people to make sure the tragedy is not repeated. On Tuesday, the department announces a total of 413 injuries recorded as of 6 a.m., with 227 cases of fireworks-related incidents on New Year's Eve alone. Of the 413 cases, 8 people are hit by stray bullets. In a press conference, Health Secretary Enrique Ona says this year's number of firework-related incidents is 17% lower than last year's record. 498 cases were reported in the same period 1 year ago. Metro Manila accounts for more than half of the total numbers of injuries recorded. The Communist Party of the Philippines ends a holiday ceasefire and orders the New People's Army to return to battle. The government and the Communist Party traditionally enter into a temporary truce during the Christmas holidays. But in a memorandum, the CPP says the government did not comply with an agreement to extend the ceasefire until January 15th. The group adds it's terminating its ceasefire ahead of the originally agreed date to protect its guerrilla units. Members of the U.S. Congress strike an 11th-hour deal to avert the fiscal cliff, with President Obama calling the deal a, quote, promise kept to those who re-elected him in November. On Monday, the U.S. Senate, voting 89-8, approves a package that raises income taxes for households earning more than $450,000 annually. But the Republican-led House of Representatives fails to come to a vote on New Year's Eve as House conservatives attempt to add additional spending reductions. On Tuesday, New Year's Day, the House votes 257 to 167 to pass the Senate version of the bill. President Obama hails its passage despite the measure falling short of his expectations.
I will sign a law that raises taxes on the wealthiest 2% of Americans while preventing a middle-class tax hike that could have sent the economy back into recession and obviously had a severe impact on families all across America. But I think we all recognize this law is just one step in the broader effort to strengthen our economy and broaden opportunity for everybody. The fact is, the deficit is still too high, and we're still investing too little in the things that we need for the economy to grow as fast as it should.
If Congress did not pass the measure by January 1, pre-programmed tax hikes and spending cuts would automatically kick in, further crippling the U.S. economy. House Speaker John Boehner says they will now focus on tightening the budget, promising significant spending cuts and reforms to the social welfare programs that are, quote, driving the U.S. deeper and deeper into debt. Thousands of protesters march in Hong Kong Tuesday, demanding the resignation of the city's head and greater democracy for the autonomous region. Organizers of two protests against Beijing-backed Chief Executive Leung Chun-ying claim a combined turnout of 140,000. Leung's popularity ratings dropped since taking office in July 2012. In December, Leung survives a no-confidence vote in the legislature over illegal structures at his luxury home. Hong Kong's chief executive is elected by a 1,200-member committee dominated by pro-Beijing elites. Protesters are calling for universal suffrage in electing Hong Kong's leader, which runs counter to the electoral system of China's communist government. Syrians wake up to airstrikes near Damascus on New Year's Day and the closing of Aleppo airport after repeated rebel attacks. The Syrian Observatory for Human Rights says at least 69 people are killed across Syria, putting the death toll at more than 46,000 during the 21-month conflict. On Monday, Syrian Prime Minister Wael al-Halaki says the government would respond to initiatives that would solve the crisis, quote, through dialogue and peaceful means. But the opposition insists Syrian President Bashar al-Assad must go before any dialogue can take place. Well, let's now look at Rappler's Wrap for today, a list of the 10 most important events around the world you shouldn't miss. At number 3, in Ivory Coast, New Year's celebrations turn into tragedy. At least 60 people, many of them children, are crushed to death and dozens more injured in a stampede Tuesday after a fireworks show in Abidjan. The fireworks are meant to celebrate the country's renewal under President Alassane Ouattara after the violent post-election year crisis from 2010 to 2011. The government declares 3 days of national mourning. At number 5, local stocks welcome 2013 with a bang after taking a cue from world markets buoyant from the U.S. Congress's last-minute budget deal. The Philippine Stock Exchange Index reaches a new all-time high on the first trading day of the year, rising 48.26 points to 5,860.99 from its December 28 close of 5,812.73. At number 6, the growth of the Singapore economy in the fourth quarter of 2012 allows it to escape technical recession. The services industry gets a boost according to government data published Wednesday. The prospects for 2013, though, remain gloomy. And at number 7, after they raped her, they tried to run her over. More details emerge of last month's grisly gang rape of a 23-year-old medical student in New Delhi. Her story fuels already simmering anger on the prevalence of sex crimes in India. 6 suspects in custody are charged with the crimes of murder and rape, but Indian lawyers refuse to defend the suspects. For the full top 10, visit Rappler.com's The Wrap. It's been 1 month since Typhoon Pablo swept across large parts of Davao Oriental and Compostela Valley, leaving devastation and interrupted lives in its wake. Out of the destruction and despair, tales of unsung heroism and great sacrifice can be told. Patricia Evangelista is in Andap, Compostela Valley to listen to their stories. We bring you a preview of just one of the many stories emerging from the tragedy.
Sa barangay Andam na talaga kami ng 03 December. Binigyan kami ng warning order na be prepared for disaster relief and rescue operations. So nandun na nag-iipon na yung mga tao doon, rumbling na yung ground. Then all communications bagsak na eh. brushing na yung baha, nakaya niya nang buhatin yung yung sasakyan namin. Nag-decide ako na tumalon doon sa baha din. Wala na rin yung takot kasi responsibility ko yung mga civilian din doon Yung basketball court din may stage. So nandun kami sa stage, baha lahat. Lahat ng tao nun, sir, anong gagawin natin? Saan tayo pupunta? Pero after a few waves na bumagsak na rin yung stage na tinutugtungan namin Hiwa-hiwalay na talaga kami lahat. Ang mga nawala ko, na tropa, Staff Sergeant Olivares, First Sergeant ko, PFC Ngosa, PFC Sigapo, Sergeant Coneyas, yung radio operator ko, Private Aranjes, Private Armodia. Siyempre, as company commander nga sakit mawalan talaga ng tao. Kasi yun nga, pamilya na kami doon Tsaka, kumbaga sa barkada rin, walang iwanan talaga. Ang plano namin ngayon, ipagpatuloy pa rin yung nasimula namin. Tumatawag sa akin yung tropa ko na nandun. Kasi may balita nga doon baka ilipat kami. Sila mismo yung nagsasabi na, sir, babalikan natin yung area. Kami pa rin daw yung magbabangon ng New Bataan kasi yun yung namin, nasimula namin doon.
On December 27, 21 Charlie Company soldiers were awarded with the Bronze Cross Medal for acts of heroism. For the full documentary and to help with the recovery effort, visit Rappler.com. Every story on Rappler has a mood meter which gives you 8 emotions to choose from. Click how you feel and your vote comes down to the mood navigator in the middle of the front page, which crowdsources the mood of the day. It also gives you the top 10 stories that received the most votes on their mood meter. If we take a look today, top story of the day, the High Court asked to strike down the RH law. You can see 69% annoyed, 17% angry, 10% amused, and 1% sad. The story that's gotten the most number of votes on the mood meter is the story that the government was going to quit the Marcos wealth chase. We know today from the spokesman that isn't the case, hasn't reached the president, but this news had 66% angry, 22% sad, and 7% happy. And finally, if you take a look, that 7% happy merges with today's year-ender, 2012, a banner year for Aquino's Congress. It really did pass laws that have been gridlocked in Congress. 71% happy, 25% inspired. The happy votes go into the mood of the day. Today, most people are happy. Well, that's Rappler's Newscast for today, Wednesday, January 2, 2013. Visit Rappler.com and watch our newscast Monday to Friday. Tell us how you feel on our mood meter and help us crowdsource the mood of the day. I'm Maria Ressa. As we say at Rappler, tomorrow begins today.